everyone, and greetings from the Lone Star State. Now, if you haven't been around the US, that's Texas, and it's pretty far away, so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be here and speak with you. Welcome to my talk, A Muggle's Guide to Security in the Cloud. Now note, the term Muggle will never be used in a negative sense. I kind of interject it with the word newbie, and as the founder, organizer, whatever you want to call, of the It's Okay to Be New campaign, I would never, ever use newbie or Muggle in a negative sense. So welcome one and all, because you are not only tolerated here, but accepted. I guess I should go ahead and introduce myself though. My name is Elle Marquez, and I am the Linux and security advocate at Inazur. Now you may be wondering, what does that mean? I mean, it's not really a common title. What it means is that my entire position is to work with our researchers to learn the latest threats, the latest types of malware, and then come and speak to everyone about it. Because without education, it's extremely difficult to mount good defenses. What you also should know about me is that from the beginning of my career, I have been taught the magic that I needed in order to cast spells to best defend my customers' environments. Maybe I should translate that to Muggle. Okay, I got it. You all use the term scripts to refer to spells, okay? Well, I was able to use these scripts in order to create the cloud itself. I was even taught advanced magic that allowed me to break down what you all call applications into small little bits to put into potion bottles. I guess you all refer to them as containers. I'm not going to put you through all of that. What you need to know is that this talk, my friends, this talk is going to be cheesy. And I mean cheesy. And I do it on purpose because look, this is an online conference and it's difficult to focus. We have kids coming in, which I'm sure you will hear mine. We've got dogs barking, phone calls going on, and some of us try to multitask, check our email, do other things, work, all thinking we can just hear things on the side and we'll remember them. Very few people can actually do that. So by being cheesy, I'm hoping to keep your attention, and if you are listening on the side, then when you think, what did she say about that one piece of malware? You can remember the cheese that I put on top of it and hopefully be able to use that in your everyday work life. On to our agenda. What are we going to be talking about today? Okay, we are going to dig into our spell books and talk about mudbloods and wizards and Death Eaters. Oh my. From there, we're going to go on to really delve into the Forbidden Forest, because we covered a bit in the Harry Potter books, but we really go into what animals are there, what attacks are there, or what attackers are there. And the forest itself seems to be lost. I think that the same has occurred in the security world. And without understanding that forbidden forest, we're put at a disadvantage. Then we'll dig in some polyjuice. Who didn't enjoy Hermione drinking that polyjuice potion with that one cat hair in it and becoming that weird cat-human hybrid? And then we're going to go into really understanding the world of protecting Harry Potter. If that is about as clear as mud, all right, I'll break it down to Muggle for you. We're going to be talking about the terminology. Without understanding that basically underlying communication, the whole new language that we use, we're at an extreme disadvantage at being able to turn from Muggles to wizards. But we'll go into that in just a bit. Then we'll cover cyber criminals, because after all, without them, we wouldn't have jobs. It's a very interesting way to think about it. Then we'll delve into the unknown, because what we don't know is really at the base of every issue we face, and at the base of all of our fears. And we're going to spend some time on code reuse, because I think that this is a subject that just isn't discussed enough when we come to speaking about threats, about malware, about what we're facing on a day-to-day basis. And we'll wrap up with how to defend our environment. We'll simplify it and we'll speak step by step on what we can do to work together, wizards and muggles alike, in order to form a good, strong defense for our companies. Okay? Let's kick things off with spells and terminology. Now, if you all could please get your 2 spell books out, we'll be using them in just a bit. When it comes to terminology, when I'm talking to you, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to say things wrong. I am going to kill every term of Harry Potter that you are all going, how does she not know how to say that? In fact, I was recently interviewed and I had a mishap and I said cryptojacker instead of crypto miner. And you know what? The intention, the point of what was occurring still got through, even though I had that small mistake. As muggles, we are almost afraid to talk because we're afraid we're going to use the wrong words. We're afraid that we won't be able to communicate our message. And this is just horrible. It's a huge disservice to ourselves and to our teams because we're not speaking up when we have a different look at things. We have a different view. We can present different facts because we're too afraid of, I might not know that correctly. It happens to me all the time. I was speaking to somebody and they kept using SAS and I finally said stop. What does software as a service have to do about any of this? The problem arose when they said, security as a service. Don't you work in security? True story. Well, you know what? SAS means software as a service with every place that I've ever learned. I learned a different acronym for security as a service. But saying that or getting to an argument wasn't going to do anything. The point is that regardless of how we say something, we need to find that middle ground in which we can communicate in. Wizards, if you're watching, if you're that person, you're doing a disservice to yourself as well. You know, as wizards, we want to be able to have our strongest spells. We want to learn. We want to have the right tools, the perfect wand. I mean, remember what happened to Ron whenever he, used his wand incorrectly and it was broken? If I'm using too many of these analogies and you haven't seen Harry Potter, make sure to see it. You're missing out in a huge cultural part of, I guess our upbringing. And my children are young and they're still watching it. So all of our upbringing. We have a way of communicating where we say things like, okay, our EC2 instance was able to be breached and they really took advantage of CVE 2009-0021. Yes, I've heard somebody speak in that way. Or we just say because of that CVE. And we talk about how, it really was because of the certificate chain and the DSA and ECDS keys. What does that mean? Now imagine going to a manager, asking permission to do something, looking to be able to perhaps get more resources. And you say something like that, what we're trying to impress them? No, he's not going to understand the gravity of what we're saying. And let's say that he needs to go a chain up to somebody who perhaps hasn't worked in the trenches for a while. And you're playing a game of telephone because what exactly is he going to tell them? You are putting yourself in a situation that you can't control. Now, if we turn into our spell books, the best way to be able to understand this is, hold on, I think I forgot to give the organizers the list to the spell books. All right, organizers, I'm going to do that. I'll also put up a resource page so you all can go and buy your spell books later on. It's okay. Let's just review what they are. Okay, the first book is the Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1. Let's start at the basics, folks. I love this book. You may also be able to find it in your Muggle libraries or your Muggle bookstores as Intro to Cybersecurity. Now, this was written by a great friend of mine and a colleague of his, my friend Jedi Mammoth, and he has a way of just breaking things down and being a great professor of the dark arts. I'm also fond of this book because he allowed me to spread that it's okay to be new message. The reason that this book has been assigned to you all is you can use it as a dictionary. You can go by and just, look up a specific term. I actually have used it to cram. You know what? Let's start and let's do the first 2 pages. Let's kind of review. I wish that everybody would break things down and just talk in Muggle. But realistically, they're not going to. So if they're not going to do the work, then we'll make some work. Wait a minute. Then we will put in the work in order to be able to grow up into those wizards. Because I know that in Harry Potter, the term mudblood was just this negative term to phrase or to refer to somebody who was, human and who had human and wizard parents. Like, screw that. That's gatekeeping in the wizard world. You are a wizard. You just need the training, the right tools. The next book that I want to recommend to you all is Dissecting the Hack by Jason A. Street. If you can't tell by now, let me point it out. I learn in stories. I use analogies. I loved learning world religions and Christian theology because parables spoke to me. In Dissecting the Hack is not as complicated as parables. What it is a story about two, let's say, young gentlemen who are out war driving and practicing new tools and just learning new techniques and having a blast being, honestly, criminals to some degree, and they fall in with some real cyber criminals. It's a great adventure. The reason I recommend the reason that I recommend this though, is because when you hit a new term, a new technology, something that you don't understand, a type of attack, you can just move over to the back of the book and you'll see what the attack was, the name, you'll see a note explaining exactly what occurred and explaining what a tool does. Then from there, it goes on to speak about the impact that new technology, the attack, had on the story. This means that you don't just know a definition, you can actually speak to a real event. That understanding of not just being able to cast a spell by saying some words, but actually knowing what it will do is an amazing foundation for you as you grow into your powers. Okay, let's dig into the fun part because I'm sure you've been waiting for this, the attack. Attacks in cybersecurity are viewed differently by wizards and by muggles. And that's because, honestly, as a wizard, we become a bit jaded. We either lump it into, we can deal with that, or, oh dear God, this is an advanced attack, we're looking at an APT, oh no, the Death Eaters have shown up. As muggles, you ask more questions. You ask why, which is huge in understanding the type of attack we're facing. By always looking at attackers as Death Eaters, we are over complicating our security. We start building those defense in depth strategies that I keep hearing about. Defense in depth is good. Defense in depth also introduces a whole lot of problems. Is everything configured correctly? Is everybody aware? Have we changed it to deal with the new environment? Has this been patched? Has this been updated? And those are just a few. I've even had people forget a few of their layers. We need to approach things from a very simple stance before we go up to that, to that strategy, to that level. This is not the cyber criminal that we're always facing. Muggles can learn to be evil wizards as well. When they turn into wizards, they can use their power for bad. We can have somebody who is 16 years old playing around on their father's computer who takes down the internet. They have the same ability, the access to the same tools. We have malware as a service where they could go buy something. We can download new malware. And if you don't believe that a 16-year-old can take down the internet, well, I'll have a resource page for you to read it as well, but you can simply Google Mafia Boy, also known as the boy who took down the internet. When you're a muggle, you have more understanding of how much you can grow. You're playing with the tools, you're understanding the new attacks, you're seeing yourself being successful. When we're facing attackers, we're not facing some guy sitting in his basement hoodie up. More than likely, it's somebody kicked back, playing on a laptop. I'd like to think that all of us will eventually get to that Skyview apartment. It's going to pay well. Or they're just sitting on their bedroom, on their bed, typing away, learning something new, and exploring your system. We know who we're facing now. Now let's talk about the Forbidden Forest. The Forbidden Forest was forbidden for a reason. It was extremely dangerous. The new wizards, the people going to Hogwarts, didn't know what all was in there because they didn't know what was all in there. They didn't know how to properly defend themselves. That's what we're facing in cybersecurity. It's the unknown. Realistically, and some of people might not like me saying this, we don't know anything. We know the past. We don't know the present. Can you speak to every single piece of equipment in your system, in your company? And if you can you speak to every single cloud instance that you have, every single line of defense, every single IP out there, every single configuration, every single piece of code, every attacker that you might be facing, people who are mad at you? Is there, do you know where all of your data is? That's the one that really scares me, is most people don't. And if you think you do, I challenge you to second guess yourself. Why I'm here today, why I was so passionate to give this talk is, I want you to start from the very beginning with your journey from being a muggle to a wizard, to having the light that you need to see, to be able to not face that darkness, but to go in with an action plan. The best way, though, that I have found to teach you this is, interestingly enough, by discussing polyjuice. Now, as I talked about earlier with Hermione taking it and becoming, part cat, we also see it whenever everyone takes it to take on Harry's appearance. Now stop for a moment and really look at this picture. Yes, we have a bunch of Harrys, but they're different. You see different clothes, and even if they all changed into the same outfit, you would see that they have different mannerisms, a different way of behaving, a different way of speaking, and to a certain degree, a different way to approach the same end goal. That's a perfect analogy for polymorphic malware. What polymorphic malware is, it's malware, malicious code, that's run on a system that is programmed to be able to morph. It changes its code. It makes small adaptations. By changing just one letter, it changes its signature, its thumbprint that we identify it by, being able to bypass our detection. And if people are going, okay, yeah, but we already know that's happening. We're keeping up to date with signatures. No, you're not. You do not have a database that has every single piece of malware, virus, malicious code in it. It's near impossible because of how quickly they're developing. And as they do so, how I talked about Harry has different mannerisms, or the other Harrys have different mannerisms, different ways of approaching the end goal. Attackers have the same thing. They use this malware to all basically create havoc on your system, whether that is bringing it down, whether that's infiltrating data. They go about it in a different way. That's why we have, different types of attacks, different types of malware, because of the end goal. Some is to get money, some is to get data, some is to bring you down. I'm being repetitive. You get the point. Harry Potter reference aside, let's talk about it in a practical way. The reason that I labeled this, cloud security, is companies are transitioning to the cloud in hordes. It's just a constantly growing phenomenon. Can I go with that? That will not, I'm willing to put this out there, is not going to die down. But as we transition to the cloud, we kind of put ourselves at a disadvantage because we don't have the time to train on all of the new technologies as they're coming out. Containers are the big hotness in the cloud. They have a deployment cycle of every couple of nanoseconds when you actually go into, continuous deployment. There are updates of container technology itself, every 3 months, every 6 months. Let's talk OpenStack. The cloud itself has a 6-month release cycle. We can't keep up with all of that. Because of it, we're seeing more and more opportunities for attackers to be able to get into these cloud systems. It's like they say, attackers, they only have to be successful once. As blue teamers, as defenders, as wizards who use their power for good, we have to be successful every single time. One piece of malware that I like to use for an example is IPstorm. Now, IPstorm was originally written to work within a Windows environment. It took advantage of that peer-to-peer protocol. Not going to go into that. Once again, I'll have a resource page with additional information about IPstorm when it comes to Windows, because I want to talk about how it's transitioned into Linux environments. And by transitioning into Linux environments, it very much can work in the cloud and really is being targeted specifically to that, because the cloud is, at last I checked, 96 point something percentage of the OSs being used in the cloud. Azure itself is running over 50% of its servers. Azure has 50% of the servers that are being deployed there in Linux. Probably is greater than 50% at this time. All right, back to IPstorm. IPstorm was found by our researchers to have transitioned to macOS and to Linux. And at the time that they found it, it had 0% detection on VirusTotal. Now, of course, we published this, gave out Yara roles, gave out information. It's still bypassing our detection methods. How? Because it's continuously morphing like we talked about. I mean, look at this screen. Okay, we're seeing it, and I'm going to go over it so I can see it with you. On September 29th, we saw a new variant coming out, and it's the top one. The SHA is changed. You can see from that entire label, that entire row, that it's continuously changing. And only 23 out of the 72 engines on VirusTotal were able to detect it. Now let's go down to September 22nd. Okay, look, 0% of the VirusTotal engines were able to detect it. We can't rely on those same old defense mechanisms that we used when we were on-prem. It's too easy to continue to deploy malware, to continue to attack systems when they're constantly changing in the cloud. We're trying new things, we're trying new services, we're trying to keep our configuration because it's new, it's exciting, it's easy, we can change back and forth. It's not like the rules that we had when we were on-prem. Attackers have more time to target to our systems than really we have to defend it. We have our entire environment that we need to keep care of. Attackers can focus on one thing. I mean, we're seeing attacker farms out there, meaning that we watch attacks start at 9 a.m. I'm not going to pick on a specific country. If you want me to, go watch my APTs in the cloud talk. And they clock in at 9. They walk out at lunch for like 12. We see them come back, and then the attack ends at 5. It's their job to go after that one system. I'm sorry, I think it's scary, to be honest with you all. The cloud is very much full of the unknown. Please excuse that weird edit. My children are obscenely loud right now and slamming doors and walking in. Welcome to presenting in the pandemic. Gave me a chance to breathe. I got off my high horse. So let's continue with the idea of Harry Potter as our storyline. Let's talk about our professor of the dark arts. Now, he really was portrayed in, I believe, the book and the movie. You tell I've watched the movie more. As I kind of think somebody you shouldn't take seriously. He was a big goofball, he ran away when the sprites were loose in the room. He just wasn't seen as somebody that was that powerful. However, we did suspect that they were probably malicious. Something just wasn't right. We need to take that mindset into our systems. As I've said several times, that lack of visibility to not knowing what's running within our system, to knowing whether it's good code, malicious code, trusted code, is the same scenario here. We have a professor, it's running on our system, it's in our castle, it's teaching our classes. We figure it's okay, even if it raises a few eyebrows. When it comes to our cloud-based systems, our Linux-based systems, our entire environment, we need to assume that an attacker has somehow gotten in already. Now, I'm not alone in this statement. It's said time after time by the FBI. You need to have an assume breach mentality. Assume the attacker is already inside of Hogwarts, he's already making his move, but doing it as stealthily as possible. Our attacker is not always he who should not be named, but sometimes our innocent attacker is able to morph his DNA, morph his code into becoming more than he could actually be on himself. attackers are using tools that were written for blue teams, that were written for pen testing, because they work, or we wouldn't be using them. We have services such as malware as a service. We can hire people to teach us. I mean, there is a whole underground network of individuals looking to train that 16-year-old kid to be even better. We have malware that has been open source, such as Mirai, and it's still effective. Let's talk about this morphing of DNA. Like I said, Mirai has been around, I believe, since 2016. It was open source. Everybody has access to it. Therefore, we should probably have the signature in our databases, right? It's fine. Mirai is still an effective tactic to this day to creating botnets, to getting into our systems. And now, not just creating botnets, but actually changing its behavior. Corey Quinn once said, he's from Screaming at the Cloud, we have front-end developers, we have back-end developers. And then we have the rest of us who are Stack Overflow developers. I've written some code, and I know anybody out there who knows that Stack Overflow is a very helpful place. You can go in, you can look for hidden keys in code, but that's something else. And you can find a function. You can find somebody that's already written what you need. You copy and paste, put it into your code, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Malware developers are developers. Why are they going to reinvent the wheel with their code if they already know a piece of malware is effective? But they want to change what it ends up doing. So they take malware A, they take malware B, we form it together and form a new baby malware. I really like analogies. And this new malware obviously has a different signature, and it has a different way of acting. Once again, bypassing those traditional base detection methods. I've skirted around it, I've kind of mentioned it, so let me introduce a new term to you. It's called runtime protection. It literally is what it says. Runtime, the code is running at that time. Protection, we are protecting ourselves from any malicious code running at that system. Right. Don't mean to speak down to anyone, but I wanted to make it clear how easy that concept is. Right now, we focus on pre-runtime detection. That means we're scanning code as it's being deployed. We have all of our checks that are going. And the issue here is that developers who are malware developers, attackers, they know that this is going to happen. A great example of this is Docky. Now, Docky, once again, when found, had 0% detection rates on those virus total engines. Why? Well, because it wasn't really malicious yet. What happened is the system got infected, then a container was spun up and it would use the curl command. And it's on a lot of systems. We use curl for troubleshooting, for reaching out to the outside world on a host quite often. And it pulled down the malicious image. It ran within a matter of seconds, and that's it. The payload was in. Do you really think that you could catch that? Could you catch that attack that happened in just a matter of seconds? No. What you can catch, though, is what's occurring on the system at that time. You need to have visibility into that code. You need to know, you know what, we didn't deploy this code, or, hey, okay, this application, what I'm seeing, some of it is normal, but there's a certain percentage of this that shares code with Mirai, IPstorm, whatever it is. We need to not be afraid of the unknown. We don't need to ignore it. We just need to shed a little bit of light on it. And dear Muggles, you are perfect for this because you, once again, you ask why. You look at it, you say, what is this code doing? Why is this running? We need that fresh look because we get cocky. We're like, oh yeah, that's happening. I don't know how many times I would see a paging alert and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, that server paged, it's cleared. Let's just close the alert. It's common practice. We're under a mountain of work as We're under a mountain of work as defenders. Keep an eye out for the things that have changed. Okay, Hagrid, my favorite defender. He's out there, he knows what's in the dark forest, he's kind of obvious. So I think I lied a little bit here because I think in order to really offer you a simplified explanation that really summarizes everything that I've discussed about, I'm going to have to add a little bit more cheese, and I'm going to have to make it a bit more relatable and concrete. Okay, here we go. We have Harry. Think about Harry as our application. Yep, I'm going there. Our application is what we want to defend, right? The entire point of the Harry Potter series is you had this boy who they were attempting to attack, who they were attempting to get rid of, who they were attempting to compromise, to bring down, whatever you want. And we had individuals who were trying to protect it. Sound familiar? All right. There's another part of the story, though, is we also have Dobby. Who didn't love Dobby? Dobby is our developers. Hoping that I don't insult anyone, and if I do, well, at least you'll remember this part. They're well-intentioned. They want to help that application, right? They know something can go wrong, so they spin up a cloud server. And you know what? That cloud server, from in its inception, will have outdated libraries. They'll have things out there that have CVEs. This screenshot is from a scan of a server that I spun up and ran it. I did nothing else. Our developers aren't going to do that, right? They're going to update it. They're going to clean the code. But they're constantly changing. We have constant updates. How often are we actually doing vulnerability scans on every single deployment? Which brings me to the next point. We want to say we do. We want to say every single piece of code, every single application is scanned. We are Snape. We are the ones saying, slow down, devs. We need more checks. We need you to run the security check. We need you to do this. We need you to have more secure deployments. Hey, you know what? We were attacked and everybody's putting it on us, but it was your code that did it. It's a bad problem when it comes to culture in a lot of companies. It's who's to blame? The security team who didn't detect it, the security team who allowed it to happen, or the developer that created that code. It doesn't matter. Our end goal is all to have the most secure application, to have the most effective application that we can in order to be effective for our companies. Talking a little bit in circles there. Basically, we get paid to make sure that our company makes money. Let's just put it out there. Our security team needs just as much visibility into everything that we do as developers. I keep changing who I am like that. So security teams need visibility into what developers are doing. And with deployment cycles of every minute, of every few seconds, there needs to be more communication. And that communication, it's all about code. By understanding that one thing, by having visibility into what's running into our systems, our defenses can be mounted. We can, in fact, just like in Harry Potter, at the end of our book, right? The end of the movie, they all come out, wizards from the beginning who are just learning to our most advanced about to graduate from Hogwarts, and they have their wands out and they're ready to protect their castle, their environment, Hogwarts, from the Death Eaters who have breached the defenses. That's exactly what we're looking to do. The attackers have breached our environment, and we need to form that last line of defense. And that starts bringing me towards the end of our presentation. So let me sum everything up. Dear Muggle, you are a wizard. I really hope somebody's name out there is Harry. And you just need some training. You need to get into that environment. You need to get into Hogwarts. You need to learn. And you need to ask questions. Because it's all about visibility. It's all about knowing what you don't know, what you need to know. And it's all about working together. Okay, I've presented a ton of information, and I know I'm guilty of falling too much into the story or talking too fast when I get excited. I will provide, and I'm trying to show it. My screen is this way with my slides. I have a site, lopunk.com. You go /Newcastle. I've got screenshots of the malware that I was showing, links so that you can run the analysis again and see any changes that have occurred. No paywall, nothing, just click the button. It's all available for free. I have news stories on effects that malware has done on Mafia Boy. Just love that story. Tools that you can play with, news articles. As I find new things, I'll continue to update it. Don't worry, I love sharing information. But let's sum all of this up. You're a wizard. I really hope somebody's name out there is Harry, but you're a wizard. You're not just a muggle. You're not a mudblood. There is nothing wrong with being you. You just need to continue to have that curiosity so you can have that visibility into things. You learn visibility. You increase your visibility by asking questions, by trying to figure out what's there. You are the key of what we need in order to mount that last line of defense. Think about it. The end of the book, the end of the movie really is everybody coming out of the castle to protect it from what the Death Eaters have already breached. They're out there, newbies and older wizards themselves, wands in hands, ready to lay down, literally forming a last line of defense to protect their environment. With that, I will take the cheese away and just say, dear Muggles, there is room for you in the security world. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.